I'm speaking today with Rachel LaCour Niesen, creator and founder of SaveFamilyPhotos.com, a great photo sharing site and storytelling tool that has a mission of saving family stories one photo at a time. Hi, Rachel.
Hey, Jen. Thanks for having me.
It's so great to have you here. I can't wait to share this story. So I'm going to let you just jump right in. Tell us about SaveFamilyPhotos.com. What is this site all about?
Well, thanks for asking. So I will start by saying I am probably the person in my family who is, I think, like any family, is the person who's designated as the steward of stories and the keeper of memories. I think all of us have someone like that in our family, whether it be ourselves or someone who we love, who really cherishes the old photos and stories they tell. So that's my role in my family. And about a year and a half ago, when my grandfather died, I was given a remarkable treasure, which was a box of old photos of him and my grandmother and of their courtship, and then my mother when she was born and her childhood, and the three of them together. So when my grandmother showed me those photos, many of which I had never seen before, I really did feel like a kid on a treasure hunt. Like I had discovered the ultimate treasure that was so priceless I didn't even know really how to describe it. But I thought I would give it a try. So I started looking through, it would have been, dozens of photos, piles, and each one had a little vignette of my grandfather at different points in his life. And so I realized that what I was looking at really wasn't just a bunch of cool vintage photos. They were actually little doorways into his life, and each image catalyzed great questions that led to great stories from the rest of my family who knew things about him that I didn't know. So that kind of launched me on this passion project that really started out very personally and ended up creating what I think some have said is a movement, which is really humbling to hear. But essentially, I got on social media, started, taking quick iPhone grab shots of these photos of my grandfather and grandmother and mother, and then tagging family members and asking them to share whatever bits and pieces they remembered, whatever stories were stirred by the photos. I just asked them to share, and it worked. And suddenly I felt like I got to know my grandfather better even after he was gone. And everyone enjoyed it so much that I started realizing other families might enjoy it too. And that led me down this path, which is now known as Save Family Photos. That's
that
in a
is
nutshell how it got started.
It's such a great story. And I had shared with you earlier my own recent experience of after a uncle passed away, finding a drawer full of photos and just the tragedy of not having anyone in my family left who could explain the stories behind them. So that I can completely relate to that drive. So tell us how it initially started out in becoming the project that it is, and how it has evolved. It's only been about a year, but how has it changed?
That's right. I think that the mission has stayed very consistent, but what's interesting to me is the exponential growth it's experienced, and that's what I couldn't have predicted. The mission has always been saving family stories one photo at a time, and I came up with that tagline actually when I was chatting with my own family, because even though we don't actually have hundreds of photos of my grandfather, we only have, probably a little less than 100 actually. Each one was so precious, and I think that it made me realize a lot of families may be daunted by the task of even opening those boxes or starting to look in the attics and the basements and the drawers, because it seemed really overwhelming. But I realized that even if we just save a handful, that alone is priceless and better than saving none. And so that's how the tagline for Save Family Photos came about. And then from there, I just experimented mostly on Instagram, because to me it's the most visually pure platform on social media today that really, in a very distraction-free kind of way, lets you highlight one image at a time, and through creative captioning and storytelling, actually involve other people. So that's kind of where I kind of put my first footsteps into starting this movement was on Instagram. And by tagging people, and also just by, frankly, reaching out to a couple close friends, asking them if they had a few photos they'd be willing to share, I realized how universal this was. This theme and this project had such universal appeal, and that's when it hit. Gosh, it probably took about 6 months, 5 or 6 months before it started experiencing some exponential or viral growth, where, family members were chiming in. After I would share their photo, they would tag 3 or 4 more family members and say, hey, look, Grandma's featured today on Say Family Photos on Instagram. Check it out. And then that person would comment and tag somebody else. And I think that that's the power of social media, where it can really be used as a force for good, right, especially in this type of project. So I'm actually really grateful to Instagram that it's around to provide that kind of pure platform for sharing and community building, because it really is remarkable how quickly the audience has grown. I think at this point it's close to 20,000 followers, which I never a year ago would have expected so quickly.
That is amazing.
So,
that is amazing.
Thanks.
Growth,
it's an honor. It's really an honor.
Totally understandable for me that so many people would, want to get involved in that. Tell us about your own background as it relates to photography.
Yeah, so it's really interesting how this project for me is very much kind of bringing all of my skill sets and training full circle. I actually have a background in also training in photojournalism. So my schooling is in journalism and story collection, story gathering, news gathering, and photo editing. And so all of those skills that I learned, through college experience and even working on the high school yearbook prior to that, have led me, I think, to this place. But between my sort of brief career in journalism and newspapers, and now I work as a wedding photographer for almost a decade. And I think that I always joke with my husband that I never realized that, being trained to go off to war and photograph, intense news events, then followed by photographing really tender family moments in weddings, would actually come together in the form of Say Family Photos, which is a way to bring together that news gathering, storytelling, and sort of nose for news skill set with intimate individual pictures of family events. And that's kind of where I've landed. And I think that it couldn't be a better place for me and my training. So it's really like a sense of calling for me that I've never quite experienced so strongly before.
Tell us about some of the stories that are on your site. You mentioned 20,000 followers. Tell us how some people are using the site and some of your favorite stories.
Sure. Wow, there's so many highlights. It's interesting. I think that I was actually chatting with someone last week as part of a collaboration I did with the New Yorker magazine, and they were asking, how do you get submissions and what are your favorite highlights? And I realized that at this point, really there are 2 ways I get submissions. One is through direct email. I make my email address available very prominently through the website and the Instagram feed, just so people can reach out and send me photos if they're, excited to participate. And the second way is through hashtagging photos on Instagram. And I looked this morning to see, and we've just peaked over 10,000 photos hashtagged for Say Family Photos, which is amazing, because to me it's whether or not someone's following the project or not, I'll always see people chime in and add that hashtag as a way to, even on a kind of cursory level, say, this matters to me and I want to hashtag this photo of my grandparents. Even if it's the only vintage photo I have, they'll hashtag it. And it's so cool to see that way of submitting and participating, because it raises awareness in a much more viral way thanks to social media. And then I love getting emails because I end up developing good friendships with people who send me photos, and there's just a real humbling honor to have someone reach out from as far away as India, for example, and send me a photo of their mother. There was a woman in India who sent me a photo of her mother as a teenager, and her mom was raised in Delhi, but her parents died and she was orphaned, and so she was then moved to live with her grandparents in a very strict, different type of household than she was used to.
Sure.
And so the story of her mother's resilience and her mother's love for her family, her grandparents, what it was like for her to be an orphan, all of those things really, came shining through in this particular photo of her mom that looked like an icon of strength and beauty. as a young woman. That's probably one of my most memorable photos I featured. I think another one is very simple, and it's something that's, I think, maybe taps into the universality of this project, and that is a woman named Deb who sent a photo of her mother on her first bike ride in rural Wyoming. And it's just, there's such a sense of joy on her mother's face. And her mother can't be more than 5 years old, maybe 4 or 5 years old. And she's just laughing, and you can see her kind of teeter-tottering on the bike like it may fall over. But she's got a sense of independence and joy that I think is relatable to anyone in the world. And it's an old Kodachrome, and there's something about old Kodachromes that I think the color's so vibrant, and we can all see it has that Mad Men kind of vibe to
right.
it. Those are two. I mean, there's also countless photos of different family members who've served in the military, who've had stories of tragedy, loss, and redemption. I've had quite a few military families send in photos of their grandparents who served, and I think that's always an honor that people really tap into that sense of not only loyalty to their country, whether it be someone in Great Britain or France, or really I've had different military representations from around the world. There's also that universal sense of this is not just a military story, it's also a family story that happens to play out on a world stage. That's also very powerful to be able to do that and share those stories and honor all of those memories from around the world of service. Yeah.
Hmm. So this is clearly a labor of love for you. Is it also actually a business? Have you found a way to monetize this?
That's a great question, and it's one that I get that question a lot, and I think that, starting out, the intention was, really exploratory. I thought, this is something I need to do for me as I grieve my own loss of my grandfather and process all of those emotions. And cherish the photos I have of him. I think that as I got farther down that road of exploration and involving more friends and family, I realized I had tapped into something that was probably more powerful than I ever realized. And I guess I had a sense of it because I knew how much it meant to me. But I just didn't know if people would enjoy looking at other people's pictures. I mean, it's one thing to look at your own pictures, but to see all of us coming together in this way to celebrate each other's memories and encourage each other to go through and find those individual photos, I think has made me much more aware of the need there is to actually continue giving resources to people to help them save and preserve memories for future generations. I'm not sure what that looks like yet for me personally or for Save Family Photos as an entity. I think right now it really feels much more like a nonprofit or a community movement and less like a business. But I could foresee actually, tapping into some of my entrepreneurial skills that I can't deny they definitely exist. I'm an entrepreneur at heart and kind of a startup person. To find a way to actually create, more valuable services for people who are interested in preserving their memories. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure what it looks like, though.
Right.
Yeah, ask me in a couple of months. Hopefully I'll have more fleshed out idea then.
Okay, deal. So are you working with companies that are in the photo industry that, of course, are in the business of preserving photography, restoring, digitizing, printing, all the different ways there are to preserve these family treasures?
I am. I've actually had the good fortune of hearing directly from a couple businesses, that have reached out to me as collaborators. A few of them, one of the big ones actually is Fullerton Photo, and they're in California. And their founder, whose name is Gabby Mullinax, she reached out to me early in this project because she had so many of her own family photos that were so valuable to her. And so we actually started out, as friends, chatting about why we love our family photos and what sparked me to start Save Family Photos and what sparked her to start Fullerton Photo, which serves so many people in California. We started doing Instagram collaborations and Facebook collaborations to raise awareness about getting your old photos digitized so you have multiple copies, backed up redundantly. And so I've been really impressed with, I just think, the personal way that Gabby and her team approach this. And similarly, they are very much kindred spirits to a team in the Southeast, which is, kind of the direct opposite side of the country named South Tree. And it's not a photo lab. They're actually, a conversion digitization service studio that basically converts anything from 8mm films to Kodachromes to tapes to negatives, and probably anything in between. They're just also an amazing team, and their founder's name is Nick, and he and his team reached out to me also very early in this process and said, "We love what you're doing, creating community on Instagram. We want to collaborate and help spread this mission." And so I think that those two are highlights, I think, of, groups who've reached out to me and really very selflessly said, what can we offer to help the community movement to really encourage people? And there are, when it comes to digitizing your photos, there really are quite a few resources out there. I think, probably all of them are pretty good. I think the key is to develop a relationship with them. And that's why I've loved collaborating with both, Fullerton Photo and South Tree, because they do take a very personal approach toward that process, and they value each of those boxes of photos that comes in, whether it's filled with 5 photos or 500 photos. So, but at the end of the day, I really think that the principle behind it is, I think all of us would agree, whether it's South Tree or Fullerton Photo or me, that, we just encourage people to find someone or some group, a business that you trust, or frankly a scanner that you trust if you're a DIYer, to really make an effort to start digitizing before people who know the stories behind the photos are gone, because that's what makes it so much harder later. So you don't have the gatekeepers to talk about the photos, and you may have great scans, but if you don't have the stories, it's really hard to add value to them.
Absolutely, absolutely. And make some great prints too, so that of the photos you're taking today, so that someday your grandchildren and their grandchildren can open up a drawer and find a treasure.
Oh,
right?
Yeah. No, absolutely. There's nothing like that experience of finding a box. It's not quite the same as finding a hard drive. So that's, it's funny, another collaborator that I worked with just for Mother's Day actually recently was a team in Colorado called Artifact Uprising, and they are probably, to me, I think one of my favorite companies out there they make books and they make lots of different types of products for photos, but I think their mission is so similar, and that is that they really want to make memories tangible so that they're around forever. And I think that's what's so cool about what they're doing. And there's definitely I don't know if you've noticed it, but a movement toward embracing analog and making sure that prints are not dead, and that we're all taking time to actually, make our memories tangible for the future. So I love that that's happening. It's really encouraging to me.
Yep, I agree with you. Well, Rachel, thank you so much for joining us today on the podcast. This is such a fantastic story, and I love that you're doing this. I have no doubt that many people who are listening are very interested in learning more and maybe getting involved in the project themselves. How can our listeners find out more and get involved?
Oh, absolutely. Thanks for asking that. The best way to get involved is to, open up those shoeboxes and drawers and attics and find those photos and send me a couple gems that are your favorite. I just invite people to email me. My email is rachel@savefamilyphotos.com, and they can send me one or as many photos as they love, along with some stories and memories behind them, because I think that, when each of us get involved and each of us take the time to actually share our stories and honor our memories, we encourage other people to do the same. And I think what I kind of add to that, this is an invitation not just to preserve your own memories, but to really gather around this online campfire where all of us share our stories, our photos, and honor each other and our memories of our family. So to me, it's just a very rewarding way for everyone to participate.
Absolutely. And if a business wanted to get involved, the same thing, send you an email?
Yeah, shoot me an email. I always look for collaborators who share the mission and who really have a sense of personal purpose in this, and who also might have some personal stories about their own family photos. Absolutely. I think that, to me, has a lot of integrity, and I love to involve collaborators to share that mission.
All right, fantastic. Thank you again so much, Rachel.
Thanks, Jen. I appreciate it.
Take care now. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.